There's no shortage of reasons to visit Bend. The weather, the sports, the beer, the food. But each fall, there's one more reason. When a myriad of startup founders and funders gather in Central Oregon for a 2-day celebration of the entrepreneurial spirit. This year, Roadcast made its way to Bend Venture Conference, the longest-standing angel investment conference in the Pacific Northwest. We had a chance to sit down with this year's finalists and hear about the companies they have founded and are looking to scale. With 3 different categories of growth, impact, and early stage, we talked with a diverse array of founders looking to pitch their company. We've consolidated some of our favorite insights, whether that's hearing about fabric made from banana plants or a whole new market to invest in musicians. You'll get a behind-the-scenes peek into some of the Northwest's most interesting startups. And if you're looking for a community hub to help launch your startup, be sure to check out BVC this October. Cheers, and we'll see you down the road. What makes Bend unique, or why Bend? You know, when you think about it, I hadn't thought about this concept of like, hey, we want the companies here to be competing against others in the state, which is really cool, and everybody loves to be in Bend.
I think it's because people choose to live here, right? Like if you talk to most people that are in Bend, it's not, very few of them were born here. This town has grown so quickly that the fertility rates are not higher in Bend than anywhere else, right? It's people are moving here. It's intentional. They're choosing to be here, usually because they want to take advantage of the recreational opportunity and quality of life, right? So it's not just, hey, there's a great place to go skiing and mountain biking every day. But it's just a smaller town with a good feel and great climate, and people are choosing to be here. Yeah. So everybody who's here wants to be here.
So, you know, the base pitch is we are reviving the refillable glass bottle ecosystem. So this isn't a new process. This is done abroad, almost everywhere. We are the only country that is still lacking commercial scale wash infrastructure to some extent.
Why?
Good question. It goes back to that single use, that linear system.
We're just so oriented to single use as a country that it's just...
Well, and it started out of marketing too, right? It started in the 60s, 70s, like people started bottling in brand new glass. Everyone else was bottling in refillables, and they looked very similar. And then you have one shiny new bottle on the shelf, and then companies start realizing, oh, well, now we don't have to manage our back-end systems anymore. We can just put it all, plastic came out. Plastic's a little cheaper than glass too, so it became more affordable. You didn't have to ship things back. Plastic was the revolution that really helped change that, and then it made it less cost effective to operate your own reuse systems. So it shifted at some point, and now we're sort of approaching the opposite, right? Consumers want better packaging. They want lightweight glass. They think PET bottles are better than standard glass bottles. A research project came out last week that highlighted that. And so we're starting...
Explain to people, what is PET bottle?
A plastic. Like PET is the same material that like water bottles are used from. So we have this shift in the consumer mindset, and we need to encourage that, right? Because we're trying to get back to a point where sustainability is the key. We're starting to calculate our carbon emissions and what we as a company actually do, and there's regulation and bills coming down with a lot of EPR legislation that make us as institutions that are manufacturing products start to consider, what are the costs of recycling? What's the end life? And that's going to continue to grow. But we're at this point where now everything is new and shiny on the shelf, and perhaps we can start to say, like, a refillable with a little bit of scratches on it. That's what's standing out on the shelf. That's what consumers can choose to look for. Choose, and it stands out already. So like we're in a spot where we can leverage
come back
what the new packaging did 40 years ago.
I love that.
ESG brands, we're a circularity company, right? And we own the technology that's able to convert agricultural waste from banana plantations into textile grade fiber. And then we have potable water as a byproduct, which is really cool. It's pretty amazing. And we're really unlocking this waste feedstock that comes from after fruit and food harvest.
Yeah.
So, brands, the textile industry at large, has an alternative feedstock to make textiles from. And so what we're deeply focused on is solving natural fiber problems with natural fiber, rather than trying to do alternative synthetics or bio-based, whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's like, no, this is natural fiber. When you look at the world, and especially as an innovator trying to solve interesting problems for whoever you're working with, we have this constrained approach to viewing what materials are available to do something with.
Yeah.
And what sustainability enables us to do, and this kind of goes to this like biomimetic practice of thinking and solving problems, is just open your aperture, right? Like if you can have sustainability be the filter by which you look at the world, your innovation window just got so much more clear.
Yeah.
There's so many more things, and it's black and white. Is it less impactful than what you're trying to fix? Yes or no?
Yeah, so Symphony is a stock market for music.
Okay.
So a lot of artists don't own the rights to their own royalties. So for instance, a couple weeks ago, Katy Perry sold the rights to her first 7 albums for $220 million to a large private equity firm.
Yep.
A private equity firm is just basically a large pool of cash, and then they're going to manage that catalog for a long period of time, right? And try and get their money back and more. But that private equity firm's valuation may change from year to year, and they may want to offload some of that asset to the public, and that's where we come in. So we allow retail investors like you, like really everyone, to invest in their favorite artists through these private equity firms. So it's an exchange of music royalties. Artists really don't make a ton of money off of streaming nowadays. They make it from touring, and so for them, they can recoup all of their music royalties in one lump sum and get that money from private equity. And then private equity does all the work where they manage the catalogs over a long portion of time. So from 2020,
So it allows the artists to get the payout
exactly.
earlier,
Yeah. So
they lose rights.
So there's this thing called public domain with music, which is the artists can own their music 75 years until after their death, right? So you're not going to be around 75 years after your death, right? And so they want that money to spend while they're alive. And so it's an opportunity for them to get that capital now and not have to worry about that managing it over the rest of their life. It's not only entertainment, it's influencer based. Like that's where all advertising dollars are going. Like if you think about like Mr. Beast, I talk about him all the time.
Yeah.
A Mr. Beast video gets 3 times as many views as the Super Bowl, right? And he releases a video once, I think it's every 2 weeks. And so think about how much power he has over advertising and the distribution he has if he's running a 2 or 3 times X Super Bowl every couple weeks, right? And but everyone has an influencer like that that's personal to them, that they follow. Like there's influencers that people trust what they say, right? Whereas if a brand comes to you and you watch a brand's commercial, like that brand has a marketing department, they hired people out of school, like they're just kind of telling you what you want to hear.
Killer.
Yeah, but when you hear a message from somebody that you've been listening to for years, like you take it much more personally. And that's kind of the route that we want to go at Symphony as well, is in partnering with musicians and get musicians on our side to kind of bring them up. And that's why we're giving a portion of every transaction to the musician, regardless of whether or not they own their IP, so that they're still getting paid.
Fior Innovations, Fior, by the way, is a name, it's an Irish name for fierce and integrity.
Oh, nice.
And my son came up with that. It's an awesome name, and we stuck with it because we're going to be scrappy to get this off the ground. But, the way we developed it really started in the pandemic.
Okay.
People needed to view construction sites remotely because they couldn't get there. So essential workers could be there with cameras, but they couldn't. So we developed a way to have high-resolution imagery streamed through a browser. And so they could see that virtual tour sort of online.
Okay.
And when they saw what we were doing, that some of our competitors weren't, they chose us and subscribed immediately.
Interesting.
So we got a few $1,000s right out the gate, and I said, I think we got a product here.
Yeah.
So we built it out to also include construction software that supports drones. But the real pitch is contractors have a hard time knowing what's underground before they dig, or behind a wall before they drill or saw. And so we stream that data based on their location to them so they can see what's there before they hit something.
Knock down a wall.
Yeah, so it's,
It's real time kind of.
In 2019, there was a huge gas line hit in the Pearl District in Portland.
Yeah.
And we've had, contractors hit post-tension cables, which make the floor explode if you do that. So really dangerous stuff can be hidden, electrical lines. So we provide that streaming service to give that data.
You can't learn from a screen at that age.
You can't.
No, it is impossible to learn from a screen at that age. children are at 2 and 3, they believe in Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny. Dear God, turn the volume down in your car. And if we all didn't grow out of that time, we would be walking around believing in things, right?
Gotcha.
Okay, so they don't learn from a screen the way that a screen was intended to be used by a 40-year-old, man.
Yeah.
And frankly, no one's worried anymore about the brain development of a 40-year-old man.
Yeah.
We're like, it's locked and
what's
done.
done is done.
Yeah. So when you go back and you're looking at these kids who are staring at screens, and people look at this candy coating educational, oh, but there's an A in there. Oh, but it reads to the kid, or oh, look at that. That's doing nothing for them. What will do something for them is offline instruction and using that tool as an extension of the classroom teacher.
Okay.
So in the educational world, we call this blended learning. For Microsoft, Google, anyone like dabbling in AI and in education, it's all about blended.
Mm-hmm.
Primarily, the instruction should take place in the classroom by a human being who understands what they're teaching, especially when it comes to language and phonemes. And then we use that tool at home for the kid to continue that instruction. Why is sound developing the brain faster when music is involved? Why is language developing faster when you instruct through music? And a lot of it came down to what SLPs, or speech language pathologists, call music intonation therapy, MIT. So it shifts the entire focus to the other side of the brain. It's the same thing that they're studying, but they're studying it with stroke victims, or they're studying it with anyone with a traumatic brain injury. But they're doing the same thing. So Vanderbilt's studying it with kids, and these guys are studying it with people like moi, and you put those two together, and it was like an aha moment. I was like, oh, this is it. So everything we do in that curriculum is music, sound, and motion based. That's why the game has to be music based.
Lights the brains on fire.
Lights the brain on fire. By the time that kids are in the 3rd grade, if they're not reading at grade level, we use that mark to determine prison beds.
Yeah. Yes. That's some of the stuff that I've seen. You're
and if a kid isn't talking by 5 or 6 at an intelligible level, really, you've got your work cut out for you. But I think that I sat through so many boot camps and seminars and things, and I would watch these people roll out their development, their business plan, right? Business plan. Gotta, development. Gotta get all the stuff done in development. It's pennies on the dollar, right? And I'm like, are y'all missing the fact that this is the exact same thing with the human body? Like, it's pennies on the dollar when it's 0 to 6 or 1 to 5 or whatever you want to say. It's pennies on the dollar. You try to change that trajectory when a kid is 14 years old and reading 5 grade levels behind. Good luck. And the amount of money you're going to dump into that, I mean, you're going to pay for it now, or you're going to pay a lot more for it later.
Gosh, we put a lot of thought around, how a customer at Starbucks thinks about their drink order. Like, why is nobody helping this anxiety moment in baby food?
Yes.
Literally, we saw pet evolve faster than baby,
What?
right? We saw fresh pet, and we saw fresher pet options before we really saw the movement in baby food. But if you think about it, infant nutrition, these first few months of feeding especially, are setting them up for a lifetime of healthy eating. It's critical for palate development, so what flavors they learn to like and textures and
Is
things.
that so kids are creating their palates that early?
That's right. And actually, the research shows that 4 to 7 months is when they're most susceptible to liking new flavors. So it's really important in those early months not to just stick to peas and carrots or the same thing that they like, give them the same thing every time. Instead, do one allergen at a time. But other than that, mix it up and give them herbs and spices, healthy fats, veggie forward. Help them learn, to like earthiness or herbal flavors, just beyond, frankly, what's in so many of the pouches and other baby food companies, and why I still have a fire in me after 15 years in baby food, is that so many of the products on the market right now are so fruit heavy that they actually have more sugar ounce per ounce than a can of Coke.